All right. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the tardiness. Sorry for the tardiness. For those that are looking for the link is on the flyer, it says YouTube link, or either you can use the QR code. You have just chimed into the Empowered Educator conversation, the Empowered Educator conversation with the Honorable Mr. Farrell Yeokum and myself, Sean Doughty. We just wanted to have a conversation on this evening. Just a just a quick conversation. We're not going to take too long. And I see some of y'all have text us to find out where we're going live from. If, like I said, if you look on the flyer, you'll see the YouTube link. You can actually copy and paste that and throw that into your web browser, and it'll take you. It should take you to the YouTube live. Okay, I'll give everybody a couple of minutes, and can I get some thumbs up? Some of my friends that are texting me, if you don't mind, go ahead and give me a thumbs up in my text right quick and let us know that we're good. All I need is one. All I need is one. All I need is one thumb.
Yeah, I'm getting messages that they can see us.
Great, great, great. I see y'all are letting us know that you can see us and you can hear us. So that's good. Again, you have just chimed into the Empower Educator Conversation podcast with Farrell Yeokum and Sean Doughty. And this is something that we've been talking about for a little while, wouldn't you say, Farrell? We just been kind of beating this horse back and forth, and I've learned so much. And I just want to put this out there and give honor where honor is due. I've learned so much from Farrell and the extensive time that he spent in education and just with people in general. There's nothing like working for a good boss. I just want to let y'all know that he is a good boss, a good supervisor, and I've learned a lot by being under his tutelage. And I just want to just say thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Certainly welcome, John. We've learned a lot from each other down through the years. I think that I know I've learned a lot from you, the way you handle children in situations that are difficult sometimes and in leading teachers. So I want to thank you for being a good friend and being someone that loves children and enjoys the educational setting.
Yes, yes. It is a heart of mine to see kids, to see students, to see learners, scholars, to see them grow and be all that they can be. And that's my goal. Inside education and outside education, where it's just real life, going to Walmart, going to the park, just being good citizens. So I see that we still have a couple of people that are that's trying to get in.
Yeah.
So give me a second. I want to make sure nobody misses this conversation. All right. Great, great, great. So if you just highlight that YouTube link, you'll be able to get right in, jump right in. All right, we have people saying that they're already in. Copy that YouTube link off the flyer and drop it right there in your web browser and you'll be able to get in. Okay. We have a couple of people that are still trying to get in. I will, okay. I see that there's a link. So if you just you can search me or you can use the QR code. The QR code could take you there. Hover over the QR code and click it, and it should take you straight there. All right. So we'll just keep going here, and so we won't prolong the time too much. So without further ado, what conversation are we going to have this evening? What conversation, what topics do we want to cover? And I think some of you have seen the flyer and you've read the flyer, and you can see that we're talking about empowering educators, but we want to focus in on a specific educator level of educator, and that is the new teacher. There's nothing like being a new teacher, and I can speak for that. I don't know if Farrell really remembers that. He's been on the mountain for a long time, y'all. So it hadn't been too long that I started as a first year teacher, and some of you guys know the feeling. And we want to talk about those new teachers, you new teachers. I'm in the boat with you, and we're just going to have a conversation if that's okay with you. So, we are in the summer, and the start of the year is coming. We know it's coming. What do we do? So, what are some things that we need to stay abreast of, Farrell? What are some things that we need to just think
Yeah, thanks for the start there, Sean. I would say that yes, I call them rookie teachers, new teachers.
about?
They're rookies. They like a rookie player, so that's a term I use a lot with them. And I would say that it's also information that's useful for teachers maybe who are frustrated, who haven't had a lot of luck in having the classroom order that they would like to have. Statistics show that 40% of teachers leave the profession in the first 5 years, and the number
Wow.
one reason is lack of student discipline. And, we're dealing with children these days. They come to us a little differently than they did back
Hmm.
when I was first teaching. I started teaching about 100 years ago, and I joke about that, but it's been a while. And I was a middle school teacher. And as we know, middle school is often thought of as being the more difficult group, and it's proven that grades 5 through 9 are a little more challenging than some of the other grades. So, when I entered the profession as a teacher, I really thought that I was going to just knock their socks off. I was going to be a superstar and they were going to love me, going to have a great time. And what happened is I really wasn't prepared. I
Wow.
walked in thinking that things were going to be wonderful. We were going to, like I said, kind of love one another. And it's just going to be I'm going to teach them everything I know about science, which was a lot. I was a science teacher, science and Spanish teacher. But I found out pretty quickly that I really wasn't quite prepared. And so I think that's the issue we want to talk about is that when you first get into teaching, many times, if you're going to be a firefighter, a policeman, an army, you know, grunt or whatever it is that you're going to be doing, many times you get a lot of training and you go over it and you go over it and then you're ready. But many times in teaching, they just say, here's your schedule, here's your room, here's your kids, good luck. And you kind of fly in there. And there are a lot of people, a lot of teachers who have a natural knack that they just know what to do and they do quite well. But a lot of teachers do not and they get flustered. If you've been
Yeah.
teaching and you're on this podcast, I'm sure you can relate, many of you, that it took a while before you really realized what you needed to do. And so that's what we want to talk about today is how do we start off this new year when the kids come back in August? Are we prepared? And Sean, I will say this, here's the difficulty with training. We don't want to just throw out a bunch of information today. We'd
Yeah.
like to find some things between this and future podcasts that are practical that you can really use because if you are in a seminar and you get a lot of training thrown at you and it's June and the kids show up in August, if you haven't worked some things out practically,
Yeah.
you're not it's not going to be retained. So
Yes, sir.
we reading books and doing things like that you have that's right there beside you can help you to kind of that little issue of the fact that I learned something back in June, and so take notes. I would take notes. I would figure out some things that you can do that you can bring it forward into your thinking when the kids show up.
Again, this is just we're just tapping the water. We're just tapping the water, y'all. We are talking with Pharaoh Yeokum, K-12, and even more educational leader, expert in his field, has put in the time, put skin in the game. As I said, we're just going to have a conversation about what can we do as new teachers? What can we do for preparation's sake? And I want to say from what you just said, Farrell, is that there seem like there are some hidden demands in the classroom. There are some things that, like you said, you went in the classroom and you were like, oh, I got this under wraps. These kids are going to love me. But there are some hidden demands of classroom order. And a couple of things that stood out to me as I began to think about what you were saying was that there are some unwritten challenges of managing student behavior. There are procedures that need to be put in order, put in place. And we probably need to talk about teacher burnout at some time. We may not be able to talk about the whole conversation in this podcast because that subject is something that has been awakened over the past few years. And I just want to talk about some of those hidden demands that we may not address right away, but we can address them now.
Right. Well, I think one of the hidden demands that I discovered, I was a flop as a teacher in my first year. I really was. I admit that. And I have to realize that many times, we know this in life, that many times to become a success, you are a flop. You fail. You're a failure here and there. You fail, don't do as well as you wanted to. And that was my story. I was really not good at it. As a matter of fact, about the seventh week of school, I tried to quit. This is not for me. And I wasn't good at it. I wanted to be. I thought that was my calling. I felt I had a passion for teaching, but I wasn't prepared for the fact that some of these students come to us rude, stubborn, unkind, maybe didn't get a lot of good training at home, and are used to kind of running things themselves. And then you've got a bunch of them in your room. The statistics are, Sean, that 85% of your students come to you compliant and 15% don't. And
Yes.
so that's those 15% that can ruin things for you. And if you aren't prepared as a leader in your room to be able to handle that 15%, it'll grow to 20%, to 25%, to 30% if your kids aren't compliant. So think about it that way. 85% of your kids come to your room wanting to please, compliant. What does that mean? They want to please you. They're,
Yeah.
They're there to learn and they have the right thinking behind them. But if you aren't the leader in your room that protects the environment and has order in your room, classroom order in your room, then the 15% can start to take over. What are you going to do when a kid jumps up and says something that's unexpected? You
Yeah.
know, maybe even uses profanity or says some things you're not prepared for. We need to be prepared. And, like a good Boy Scout,
Yeah.
preparation is so important. And so, one of the things I want to help teachers to do, new teachers or frustrated teachers, I want you to start thinking about some things. We're going to throw out some things that might come up in your room. And I'd like for you to maybe be thinking about that. If that should happen to you, what would you do? So I think that's part of the problem, Sean, is the lack of realizing that they are truly a leader in the room. When they get in the room, Sean, they're the only adult in the room.
Wow.
They're obviously the leader, but with sometimes we don't think of ourselves, our teachers don't think of it. I didn't. I thought the principal's the leader, the superintendent's the leader, I'm just the teacher. But so, rookie teachers, frustrated teachers, remember, you are the leader, and we can talk about leadership qualities.
I love the word preparation, which is synonymous. I got some thunder going on outside, y'all. Is synonymous with the word prevention. And there's nothing like being led by your emotions. And that was me, y'all. And I have a few friends on here that know me. And as much as I love the subject of behavior, as much as I love social emotional learning, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like all of that, I love it and I use it. But I came into the behavior game uh, by way of SPED and serving those exceptional students and just working with the campus at large with students that just needed a little extra love, a little extra care. Sometimes I became emotional, y'all, and that was a hidden thing to me because I wanted to say, do this, and the students do it. And when they did not do it, without preparation and without prevention and proper protocol in place, I became emotional. I had no other tools but to raise my voice or smack the desk. Not the child, not the student, y'all. Smack the desk or even walk out the room for a second because I was not prepared for some of the behaviors and being emotional just did not help me. It actually took over what could have been a good learning experience and I didn't get it until later on, years later, that it's the other way around, having protocol, prevention, and preparation. And we're going to talk about all those tools on this podcast and those to come so that when we are faced with inappropriate or sometimes just outlandish behavior in the classroom, we're not bamboozled. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready. So I wanna pull this out before we move to our next point. When we're talking about classroom order, now I've heard it like this: classroom management. What is the difference between classroom management and classroom order?
Well, they're similar, and you're correct. Classroom management is a term that most people are familiar with. However, behavior management and classroom management implies a relationship that I don't really believe exists uh, succinctly in the classroom. Um, you're not People can get managed, and in a job, if you're managing a company, then you manage the finances, you manage the staff, you manage the customers, you manage the facility. But when you are teaching, Your primary thing is the relationship that you have with your students. So, yes, you have a classroom that needs order in it. And so part of that order is making sure that your students know how to behave. What often happens is we talk about classroom management, but really what it is discipline. And that term sometimes turns people off a little bit. But we do need to be disciplined. I need discipline in my life in order to be successful in many areas. An undisciplined life is not something that we want. So we want to help our students to become disciplined. In other words, if they come to us with poor behaviors, which many of them do and will, and you can expect that and anticipate that,
Yeah,
then we have to find ways to correct their behavior. Discipline often implies punishment. We're not there to punish children.
that's good.
If we're punishing children, we're doing the wrong thing. But to have order in your classroom means that they need to learn to correct their behaviors. See, I felt like when I first became a teacher, I thought, well, it's my job to make them behave. It's my job to make them learn. It's my job to make them do their homework. It's my job to make them do their work in the classroom. And it was one day when I had failed so miserably, and I really thought I was just going to leave. And I had some time with my wife, and we thought about it and prayed about it, tried to figure out what to do. That I suddenly realized it's not my job to make them do anything because I can't make anyone do anything. And that's a
Wow.
revelation I hope that some of the people listening might get because I'm sure I wasn't alone. I've run into people many times in my years. They thought, like I did, that it was their job to make them behave and make them do the work in the classroom. Remember, this is a very important point. If you're making notes, make this note. You are the only variable you can control in your classroom. I was out of control of myself. That was the problem.
Wow.
I allowed students to push my buttons, and many teachers end up resorting to tools to get students to behave, and the tools they often resort to are yelling, begging, screaming, and pleading. Don't do those. You have to remain calm. And remember this, and I think you're making notes. Use calm to regain calm. If you don't have a calm classroom, you have to count to 10, scratch your head, think about it. Don't allow yourself to get angry. And
Yeah.
that's what I did. I just like you, I started yelling at the kids. I would even tell them, hush, I've had enough of it. Settle down. Get a hold of yourselves. I'm through with it. You understand me?
Yep.
And I would do that. Now, what does that make you feel like when I just did that, Sean?
I felt like I did when I was working with you on campus. No, I'm playing.
Look out now. No, I'm just, but that's the thing is that that doesn't get you anywhere.
No,
Matter of
it didn't make
fact,
me feel good.
in order for you to be successful in classroom as a leader, you have to be getting respect from your students.
Yes, sir.
When you do that, you haven't gained any respect. You've lost it. And that's the 15% becomes 20%, becomes 25% that are no longer compliant. And it spreads. Whereas if you know how to be calm and you know how to handle children, the 15% becomes 10% and become five, you get to 0%. But you can get to where that you only have 5 or 10% of your students that aren't as compliant as they should be. They're children and they're going to act up and you need to expect it, but you need to anticipate that and be prepared for it in a calm way and have a plan of what you're going to do when.
So it sounds to me that in this environment of learning, teaching and learning, there has to be someone, i.e., the educator, the teacher, there has to be someone that sets a standard, someone that's creating this space, right?
Yeah.
And this culture, if you will, the patterns and the beliefs
Yeah.
of what's supposed to go on in the classroom.
Right.
So would I be okay with saying that it is the teacher that creates the culture in the classroom?
That's exactly correct. I'm glad you brought that point up about culture because if we're not careful, not only in a classroom but in a school, we could end up being not being the people who set the culture. The teacher should set the culture in the classroom. The principal and their administrative team should set the culture in the school. And in the many years that I've been doing this, I have seen schools where the culture is set by parents, by students, by outsiders. And it's something that is difficult sometimes to handle. You have well-meaning parents, and parents are such an issue and a part of everything, and we forget that sometimes. And we need parents on our side.
We need,
However, we can't give up and just let them establish the culture because it's unfortunate, but many times it's a truism that many times the negative people, the people who are sowing seeds of discord and are not the ones that you want setting culture, if you're not careful, they're the ones who will. And you have to hold the line. And once you do that, getting back to parents, they will appreciate the fact that you are a person who is determined, a person of good character, of virtue, who's going to hold the line. So, teachers in your classroom, you don't control the school. You have to remember that your character is showing and your students are seeing you. And the virtue that I was displaying in my classroom those first weeks, the first most of the year, was not being a person who was in control of himself, that knew how to control myself. How was I expecting them to be controlled, to control themselves or me to control them when I couldn't control myself? And it's very common. It's not uncommon that this is the situation in a classroom. So have humility, realize that you are fallible and you can't make them do anything. But what you have to do, Sean, is you've got to set your expectations in your
yes,
classroom. And it's a mistake that many teachers and schools make. You've got a whole year ahead of you with all this curriculum to do and tests coming up at the end of the year, and I got to get started on this. No, spend some time, a whole day, 2 days, whatever it is, helping to maybe break the ice, establish a little bit of a relationship. And there's lots of things that I can talk about that helps you to set the stage because how you start has so much to do with how you finish. And if you don't start off at a level of respect, a level of students, because students come, they're curious about you.
yeah, yeah, they are.
What do you stand for? I'm gonna spend 170 days, however many days it is with you, for if you're in upper school, maybe an hour, but if you're in elementary school for several hours every day. And I want this to be an amiable, amicable relationship. And so everybody kind of starts off that way. It's kind of a honeymoon period. We talk about that, but it's true. And so you've got to start right off the bat, letting your students know, hey, I love you. I care about you. I want to make sure that this is a safe place for us. And so I have certain expectations. You call them rules if you want, expectations. And we're going to go over them right now. And I even suggest giving them a test over your rules and expectations. They need to
Yeah,
know them.
yeah,
And it needs to be a part of what you're doing every single day in your classroom from the time that you start in there. It doesn't mean you can't have fun, and it doesn't mean that there might not be some things that you may have to decide you have to wink at. There should be few of them.
yes,
But, you know, remembering always that these are children, that they're looking to you for how to grow up and to mature and to become you're the leader. They're your disciples, and disciples are looking to become more like their teacher, and that's what you should be as a role model for them.
that reminds me of the educational law, if you will, in loco parentis,
Yeah.
meaning that we as teachers, we come alongside the student as if we were their parents. The parents are not there at that particular time, but we want the parents to know, we want the student to know, the scholar, the learner to know that we have care in our heart for you. And there are expectations that go along with that. For instance, for the few years that I've worked in the world of behavior, I've met some challenging situations. One challenging situation that I met was a student throwing a wad of paper, throwing a wad of paper. Now, Some might say, Sean, I don't understand what you're talking about. That is not a serious situation. Well, it is serious to me because the student did not have a replacement behavior for what they should do with the wad of paper. So if they don't have it, then who did not give it to them? It was the teacher that did not give the protocol, the procedure to them. So even those little hinges will throw off your classroom, throw off your flow, throw off the lesson. Just letting the student know what is the procedure for throwing paper away.
Exactly.
I'm not going to say it's that simple, but this is just a conversation. I'm not, you don't have to bet all your money on it. But what I will say, try it and see. Just a wad of paper. Or what does it mean to know as a student? What does it mean to know when should I sharpen my pencil? Where should I sharpen my pencil? Do y'all get where I'm going? What does it mean to turn in my homework when I walk in the class? Where do I turn in my homework? If I don't know where to turn my homework in, then I'll just shove it in my desk or I'll just leave it in my backpack because I don't really know where those things go. And one thing leads to another. And here we are. We have lunch detentions and after school detentions and in school suspension. And you will, and if you don't mind, for the new teachers, you will get pushback on some of your referrals because some of the referrals are only based on tier one behavior. Tier one behavior should be and can be taken care of and addressed in the classroom. In the classroom. So, how do you do that? Hey, teach them how to throw paper away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, it's very important that as you work with your students, that they know that as the calm, cool, confident professional, that there's nothing that you can't handle. And that's a hard place to get to. It takes experience. And so sometimes as a new teacher, as a teacher's taught a year or two, if you're having some difficulties with those things, you need to just to continue to realize that as you stay calm and as you share with your students, as you develop a relationship with them, uh, they are really wanting to be uh, compliant. Most students are. And so you need to find ways to keep them in your classroom. If there's something going on and you decide that you need some help from the outside, it should be something that is serious enough to really warrant that. Because if you want to have respect from your children in your room, they need to believe that you know how to handle things. Because if you
Yep.
can't handle something like a wad of paper, and the principal has to handle that, then they've lost a lot of respect for you because you can't handle very much. And so you got to have some procedures set up. You need to really practice every single procedure, lining up, going to the cafeteria, opening your books. There's many little procedures that we can talk about. So many people will say, even elementary teachers especially, will say they'll clap. Doing things like that, where you teach your children that when I do that, that means that you're to stop what you're doing. You return the clap in the same beat that I did. So that might not be something you would do in high school, of course, but some things have to be age appropriate. And there, in any event, you've got to make sure that you are always in control of yourself and that students begin to learn that as that calm, cool, confident professional, there's not anything that they can do that you can't handle. So what's a practical thing for doing that? If you have someone confrontational, like with throwing away the paper, or they sharpen their pencil when they shouldn't have, or something like that, the worst thing you can do is to try to just say, "Now, Roger, what are you doing with that paper?" You've got many other ways to handle it. You could get close to the student and just hand me that paper. There's a lot of things that you can do. But raising your voice or demanding it or calling attention to them, they may like that you're calling attention to them. So you've got to start figuring out how these children work and operate, and how can I make sure that I have order in my classroom and that they know what my expectations are, and that they begin to realize they have to live up to your expectations or there is consequences. Not punishment, but there are consequences for that.
And those consequences, I just, I've worked with, I've had the opportunity to work in the classroom and on the campus level. And one thing that I've seen is that consequences can cause, and let me reword and say it like this. Consequences can cause a disconnection if not delivered in an understandable way, for everybody. So I'll put it to you like this. As I began to understand that the classroom was one part of this consequence continuum, there are other places on campus as well. So, what they're learning in the classroom, it should translate to other areas in the school. So, as we're addressing these behaviors and these consequences are coming out, whether that be proximity, whether that be touching the table, whether that be praising somebody else so that we can know what the proper behavior looks like and sounds like, then we can set up a fence post. I heard this from a guy.
Mhm.
I think his name was Farrell. You can
Yeah.
set up fence posts so that we all know from the campus level to the classroom level that this is what it looks like throughout the day. And because sometimes we could just, we can go nose blind, we can go numb to a lot of what we're doing, and we just want to stop the behavior.
Yes.
We just
Well,
want to stop it, but we need
and
to.
here's such a big problem in a classroom is that one of the five C's of leadership is consistency. And so a person's got to be consistent. And that means you need to know what you can do. So what are some of the things that you can do in order to take control of your classroom and have order in your classroom when someone, excuse me, has done something that they shouldn't do? Your students should know that there are going to be consequences for it and that you're going to deliver those consequences consistently and regularly and lovingly. But so, Sean, since you chose to want that piece of paper and throw it at the student, I'm sorry, you're going to be the last one to leave for lunch today. I'm sorry, Sean, since you decided to throw that piece of paper, you're going to have to sit beside me at recess. Take away something, a privilege that they're used to, is a fairly easy one, and it usually will get their attention pretty good because they don't want to lose that privilege. One reason why lunch attention is such a powerful one, and one I don't use right at the beginning, because most kids, not all of them, you can't find anything that's so universal that everybody would hate it. But still, as you work with children and getting to know them, you can figure out what it is that they would like to do. And then you take it away from them because it's a privilege. It's
So
not a
you're
right.
telling me, so you're telling me, I know I just cut you off, but this light bulb went off in my head. So you're telling me I need to get to know these people that
Yes.
are trying to take over my classroom.
Yes. And
I
and
just
that's the reason why, Sean, that's the reason why the first few days are so important. And I always suggest that I used to do this after I learned to do that, to have a speech on my first day to help them to know who I am. A little bit of background, I'm married, got kids, that sort of a thing, and really love teaching science. I want to teach everything about science, which is a lot we're going to enjoy this year. But I want you to know, children, that I really love what I do. I know that you didn't have a chance to choose me. You had no choice. You've got your schedule. Here's Mr. Yeokum for science. That's it. I didn't necessarily choose you personally, but I chose to be here. because
Yeah.
this is my job and I love it. I love teaching children. And because you're in my classroom, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make this a very safe environment. And I'm going to tell you, I'm pretty strict. I have some expectations, and we're going to talk about those. And people who know me, because remember this, teachers, you're developing a reputation, and your reputation is going to follow you. So you want to develop a good reputation if you're new at it. So, people who know me know, children, that I say what I mean, and I mean what I say.
Yes, sir.
And so we're going to go through this. And I think you're going to find that as a result of that being the way to operate this classroom, children, that this is going to be a very safe place where we're going to learn. We got a lot to learn. And we don't have time to waste with silliness and people not operating themselves the way they should. So I'm just going to tell me very strict about that. And I usually go on a ways with that whole idea of caring and loving them and being so glad that they're there. We're going to have a great year. Usually we'll tell them a few things we're going to do. Usually I would give them some interesting things about science because I'm going to be science teacher. So I say as an example, do you realize that some lightning strikes are 57 times hotter than the surface of the sun? That's how hot something like. Do you realize that those clouds you see rolling away up there in the sky, that all of them weigh millions of tons?
Wow.
Even though the wind is pushing them. You develop an interest in what you're doing and that you know something as a teacher. That sun is really hard on my face. But so that you what you're doing is you're becoming transparent with them. You help them
Yes.
know that it's going to be a fun time, it's going to be a fun class, but I'm a strict disciplinarian, and you need to know that. And I would tell you this is a tough one. But I would try to find some way on your very first day to find someone that you consequent because your kids are going to know Mr. Yeokum means business. I can tell you there are very few teachers who give a student consequence first day of school, but it sends a message that you want your children to know. I really recommend that you think about that and to find some way. Sean, okay, Sean, this is what you did. So you're the last one to leave the class today.
Mhm.
See that, Mr. Yoke, but on Sean, I mean, he's never been in trouble. He's in the seventh grade. He's never been in trouble yet. And so they see that there's no favoritism. They see that you're going to be consistent with it. Consistency, consistency, consistency. That's probably the number one leadership skill you need in your classroom.
Look,
Besides humility.
y'all. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. This is our conversation. This is the Empowered Educator conversation with Yeokum and Doughty podcast. So we just wanted to have a conversation about what's happening and how we can help any new teachers out there, any new educators out there, and just even just getting ready for this new school year that's coming up. We have Pharaoh Yeokum here, over 20 years of educational leadership. Over 20 years. He said it's been 100. He looks too young for it to be 100. So it's over 20 years he's been serving, and we are so appreciative. And I know we have many people on here that have been under his tutelage. And I speak for myself, a very proud young man to have learned from and still learning and still being mentored by Farrell. He's a husband. He's a husband and he's married to Debbie. Now I don't know if y'all know Debbie. She's the sweetest lady. I only met her a couple of times, but I cannot forget her. She was so sweet. We were working on a book project. I think she still works with books and all that. It's just a beautiful lady. 39 years. 39 years they've been married. It's
40.
something. Go ahead, Mr. Yoko.
It's 40 years.
40 years. Sorry, 40. I didn't mean to disrespect that. That is a feat that I'm working towards. I'm going towards 21. I'm at 20 now. I'm working towards 21 with my beautiful wife Tana. And I wanna interject something here. Uh, And it's so easy for me to say Mr. Yeokum because, like I said, he was my boss, and I'm from Louisiana, so we put gravy on people's names and we put handles on there. But he said call him Farrell, so it's hard. It's hard. I'm working hard. But Farrell has written a book. He's an author as well. He's written a book called Mastering Classroom Discipline for New Teachers. Mastering Classroom Discipline for new teachers. I think you need to get it. And if you don't need it, give it to somebody, buy it, give it to somebody that does need it. This is so adamant in our generation today. We have all sorts of technology at links, AI, and just so many platforms that our students are interacting with that could be causing disconnection relationally. But this book, I found, it brings it together. It keeps us it keeps us whole human beings. And we can do that and we can be that even in the classroom. So I just want to share. I don't know if you've seen this book before, but let me show it to you right quick. Let me show you this book. So just take a look at it. You can go to Amazon and you can purchase this book. If you don't like paper, you can get it on Kindle. So, Mastering Classroom Discipline for New Teachers, a practical guide to create an orderly classroom, prevent disruptions, and improve student performance. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that? Mr. Yeokum, could you just share a little bit about this book and where did it come from?
Yes, sir. Well, I tell you, I've had people for a long time suggest that I write a book because I always tell them the stories about discipline in the classroom and how it was handled. And I was doing teacher training because of some of my expertise. As I told you, when I first got into teaching, I was horrible at it, almost quit. But the good Lord helped me through prayer and through learning and through discovering things about how to be more effective at it. And a matter of fact, I got so effective at it that they asked me to become their assistant principal a couple of years later, and to train others in how to have classroom discipline. So I turned all that failure into a success. Eventually was took a campus, a middle school campus in Fort Worth area, and so I've had I think 6 or 7 campuses altogether that I've run down through. I've been actually running. I was actually head of campus for a different campus for over 25 years, just doing that, running campuses. So, but I learned a lot, and I was actually asked to present at some different organizations, Texas Classroom Teacher Association, Texas Middle School Association, and some other things. And we actually came up with a system known as the book that a lot of school districts and schools use that we could always talk about at some date. But that's what kind of got me started. So I was told how to do this, and so I decided in 2011, I kind of started the book, and it took me that long. I just published it in May. So it is brand new, but it's been years in the making, and it's been a labor of love.
Mastering Classroom Discipline for New Teachers. I need you to pick that up yesterday. I need you to pick it up yesterday. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and run to our close. This has been an evening to remember for me because me and Farrell have been just talking in his office for days on end, hours on end, and I've been just gleaning information from him. So to be able to share this with you out there in the YouTube world, out there in the education world, is special to me. And I hope that on July, I want you to, if you're taking notes, I need you to take this down, take this note down that in July, what month? July 16th at 6 o'clock. We're going to hit this one more time. We're going to hit it one more time before you guys have to gear up. If you have teachers, if you're an admin online, if you're an admin on here, Please get your new teachers in the building. We're just having a good old conversation. We want to talk about practical tools that we can use in the classroom that will spread throughout the campus, that will even spread into homes and communities. We just are so appreciative for Pharaoh spending some time with us on this evening. I just wanted to see if there's any nuggets that you want to leave with us, anything you want to leave with us, Pharaoh, tonight.
Yeah, I would. I would like to say this. I understand the title is new, for new teachers, and they're the ones that it was designed for. However, there are a lot of teachers who have been in the classroom for a while who are still struggling with how to make that work. And actually, many of them end up being in fear of that of the start of school for they know that they have these sorts of things that could come up. So it's not just for brand new teachers, although that is the focus, but any teacher that feel like they could use some help, maybe some nuggets, you should pick up one or two things that will help you be better next year.
Yes. Thank all of you who have commented. We do see your chat, we do see the comments, and we thank you for that. I even saw someone speaking my special education world language, talking about FBA's functional behavioral assessments, which do give parameters and support for students who really need us the most. So thank you, Devin, for that, and all others that have chimed in. Thank you again. Please, July 16th at 6 o'clock, meet us here. Empowered Educator, the Empowered Educator. Are you empowered? The Empowered Educator conversation with Yeokum and Doughty podcast. Y'all have a great evening. Y'all have a great evening.